Hello everyone, Team Octopus Knights, and this is Yule here, and I'll be showing you how to win Queen versus Minor Pieces. So that is Queen versus Bishop and Queen versus Knight. In order to win these positions, you first must know how to checkmate with a single queen. So if you don't know that, you can go back to our previous video and check that out. And the reason I say that you first must know how to checkmate with a single queen is because these positions have a lot in common. The first one that they have in common is that you need to create a box against the enemy king, and then drive the enemy king to a corner or side of the board. And finally, use your own king in order to deliver checkmate. So let's just start with queen versus bishop, which I consider to be the easier one, since the bishop is less trickier than the knight, which we'll find out later. Here a good move would be queen to d5, again following our plan of creating a box against the enemy king. And here, after king to f4, we can play king to d6, which brings our king up. If he plays king to e3, we can play queen to c4. And this might look familiar if you looked at the single queen checkmate, because this is called the following him strategy, which shrinks our box. And here, after something like bishop e1, we can play king to d5, which further brings our king. And after something like bishop g3, here if he plays king to d2, we can shrink the box again with queen to b3. After king to e2, king to e4, this only helps us. So bishop g3 I think would be a better move here. And we have this very beautiful move, queen to e4 check. And the reason I say that this is beautiful is because it forces black to play king to f2 here. And the reason is because if he plays king to d2, we can give check on g2, and this picks up the bishop, which will win very soon. So it forces him to play king to f2. And here, a best move would be to play king to d4, because following our plan. And after something like bishop to h2, again, if he plays king to f1, this only helps us, because here we can play king to f3 check. This forces him to play bishop f2, or else he'll lose the bishop. And after king d3, we'll probably give checkmate very soon, as the black king is trapped. So after bishop h2, we can play king to d3. And after bishop to g3, moving back and forth, we can play queen to e3 check. This move once again shrinks the box further, and here he has two choices. The first one is to play king to f1, which I consider to be a tricky move. Because right here, we cannot actually go queen to g3 right away, because this would actually be a draw. As said before, it's a stalemate. And a stalemate is when your enemy doesn't have anywhere to go, but this is not check. So this would actually be a draw. And we definitely do not want that to happen. So here we cannot actually take the bishop, but a better move would be to play queen to e2, which sticks with the plan of shrinking the box. And after king to g1, we play king to e3, again bringing our king up. And after bishop h2, king f3, we'll give checkmate in one move. Okay. Besides king to f1, the other reasonable move he has is king to g2. And after king to g2, the best move is king to e2, once again bringing our king closer to the enemy king so that it can help in the checkmate. And after king to h3, we have a very important move, queen to e4. Because right here, we've created a force field on the fourth rank, which prevented the black king from escaping from any of these squares. After queen to e4, if he moves his bishop to h4, we can play king to f3 with threats like queen to g4 and checkmating on g2. And if he plays king to h2, we can play king f3. And if he moves his bishop, we can give check on e2. And after king h3, queen to g2, king h4, we can simply give checkmate. Back to king f3, if he doesn't move his bishop and plays king to h3 instead, we can simply play queen to g4. And after king to h2, we can pick up the bishop and checkmate on g2. Okay, to sum it up, queen versus bishop. It's very similar to a single queen checkmate, and some good strategies are creating a box, chasing the enemy king to a side or corner of the board, and finally, using our king to help in the checkmate. It's very similar to the one queen checkmate, except there's a bishop. Okay, now let's move on to queen versus knight, which I consider to be much harder than queen versus bishop. And the reason is because queen versus knight is much trickier. So let's just take a look at this position. We're playing white and we've already created a box, which is nice, but here reasonable moves would be to bring our king up. But the obvious king to b2 actually allows a draw immediately because after knight to c4 check, notice how the king and the queen are forked. The king and the queen are both attacked at once and white must move his king. And after king to c3, black picks up the queen and draws the game. So king to b2 would actually be a big mistake here, and we cannot do that. A better move would be to play king to a2, which king knight to c4 is no longer check. So here, black's best move is king to d6. And after queen to e4, which continues with our plan of shrinking the box, black plays knight to d7, which sets up a trick. Can you find out what it is? Okay. Black's idea is that if we play the obvious king to b3, he once again makes a draw with knight to c5 check. And notice how the king and the queen are both attacked again. That's why I consider the queen versus knight to be much harder, because we have to constantly watch out for forks. And after king to c4, he picks up our queen. So after knight to d7, we cannot actually play king to b3 right away. So king to b2 would actually be a better move. And a good strategy in queen versus knight is that we have to be very patient. We cannot rush, or else we might run into some mistakes. So after king to b2, if he plays knight to c5, we can go queen to d4 check. This is a good move because it forces him to play king to c6, or else he would lose his knight. And after king to c6, we can follow our plan with king to c3. And after king to b5, we can play this beautiful move, queen to d5. This move pins the knight to the king and forces him to play king to b6, or else he would just lose his knight right away. After king to b6, we can play king to c4, and this move attacks the knight and forces it to move. And after something like knight to b7, we can go queen to e6 check, which is a very nice move because it once again pushes him back. And the reason I say that is because if he plays king to e5, it actually helps us because after queen to c6, we're threatening checkmate on b5 and he cannot really stop it. So yeah. And after queen to e6, he's forced to play king to c7. And once again, we can continue with our plan with king to d5. Here, if we play king to b5, it kind of gives him a bit of counterplay. He can check on d6. And if we go king to c5, he can just move back and check again. And this just repeats the position. So I guess king to d5 right away would be a better move. And after something like king to d8, if he decides to move his knight, we can give check on e7, which forces him to play king to c8, or else he would lose the knight. And here, once again, we play king to c5, which moves our king closer. And after knight to b7, king to b6, we'll give checkmate in one move. Okay, so after king to d8 instead of knight to d8, we can play queen to b6, attacking the king and the knight at once, which forces him to play king to c8. And after queen to c6, once again, we force him to play king to b8, or else he would lose this knight. And after queen to d7, black has two choices here. If he plays king to a7, we can play king to c6, and he loses his knight because it's pinned. And if he plays knight to a5, we can go queen to b5 check, which once again attacks the knight and the king at once. And after knight to b7, we play king to c6, pinning the knight against the black king. And right now we finally won the knight after so many moves. And after king to c8, queen takes b7, king b8, we give checkmate on d7. Okay, to sum up queen versus knight, there are many good strategies here. So the first one is creating a box, just like queen versus bishop and the single queen checkmate. The second is that we need to once again push the enemy king to the side or corner of the board. And lastly, we need our king's help to checkmate. And when we're playing against a knight, we have to constantly be careful and watch out for knight forks, as that would win our queen. So in these positions, a good strategy would be to be very patient and don't rush, or else you might make mistakes. Okay, guys, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. I'll see you guys in the next video.